Let's talk about a health success here on the Exam Room podcast, brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Hello, I'm the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. My guest today is someone who once tipped the scales at 350 pounds and was very near having a heart attack himself. His health was in big time decline, but he was able to turn everything around and now is using his own remarkable transformation to inspire others. With that, we welcome a simple country boy to the show who is anything but simple. He is extraordinary. He is my guy, Mr. Dennis Jones. Dennis, thanks for being here, my friend.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here, Chuck.
Love talking from one fellow weight loss success to another. These are my favorite episodes. So let's start with getting up to 350 pounds. The first question so often I get asked, how did you get to be 420 pounds? So I'm going to start with you. How did you get up to 350?
A whole lot easier than you think, because you don't see it coming. I mean, you have to. Okay, so a little background. I was in the U.S. Marines, and I was a Marine, and I was hard charging, all of this stuff kind of guy. And then you get off of active duty, and then you go home. Or in my case, I went home and I worked, and then eventually I moved to Hawaii. And somewhere along the way, my eating never changed to match my activity. Or should I say my activity changed and didn't keep up with my eating. But either way, at the end of the day, living in Hawaii, and I always tell people, I lived on the Big Island of Hawaii, and I was at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. And I lived outside of town, and I had neighbors who were very neighborly. I mean, it was like country boy meets the tropics. Okay. So like people actually, I mean, literally, you don't understand. I knew all my neighbors. My neighbors knew me by name. Sometimes if a neighbor wasn't doing well, I would go to the store and get stuff for them and bring it back to their house so they didn't have to. And that meant also that my neighbors did a lot of potlucks. I guess that's the easiest way to describe it. It was a potluck. And you have to understand that what that meant was that they're cooking food and they're going to hand you a plate of food. Okay. And on this plate is going to be white rice, macaroni salad, and there'll be one more other and potato salad. So you'd have macaroni salad, potato salad, white rice. Then you'd have some type of meat or animal product or something like that. And maybe somewhere in there that might be something that was green, and it might have been fallen off a tree or something, but you might get something green in that meal. And you would eat this, and they would fix you a plate. And of course, just like in the South, people don't just let you leave after you had a plate. You got to sit, talk story, update them on what you're doing, or just listen to the older people talk. And then of course they send you home with a plate or two, piled high. I mean, it's like piled high with food. And you would do this, and, you eat, and then I'm not running anymore. I'm not doing, 12-mile force marches or anything like that. I'm literally getting in my car, driving to campus, and leaving campus and driving home. And so somewhere along the way, one day I went to walk up 3 steps, not 3 flights, but 3 steps. And I was so winded. I mean, literally just 3 stairs. I had to hold the handrail, had to catch my breath at the top. And then I walked into the office, and, I would do whatever I needed to do. And then I would make my way home. Now, I didn't start out that way on campus. I mean, when I first got to campus, I became a university research diver. I did things to stay active, but somewhere along the way, academics and focus and things like that get in the way, and you just become a little bit more sedentary. And I did. But I continued to eat. And then one day I discovered this, like you discovered Taco Bell, I discovered a place called Jack in the Box. And because they don't have those back east here, but they had Jack in the Box, and they had this thing called the Ultimate Cheeseburger, which was, I think, almost 2 pounds of, or maybe 2.5 pounds of like fat-laden, grease-laden, just stuff. And when I first had one, I could barely eat a quarter. By time I needed help, I could eat 2 in one sitting and still be hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I heard your story, I'm like, my God, I've been there. Dude, I've been there. I know what that's like. Man. It's like, and it's true. You walk in, and They know you. They know what you're going to order. You don't even have to you don't have to think about it. They call you by name. They say, hey,
It's like
Dennis, good to
Cheers.
see you.
It is totally like Cheers. Everybody knows your name. You
There you
walk in
go.
there, Dennis.
It
It's
is.
yeah, man.
And if somebody's new, they'll introduce you and they'll say, "Oh, don't worry. He always orders the same thing. He'll get this. He'll get 2 ultimate cheeseburgers, a large order of fry, and a supersized drink." That would be what he would get, and that's what Dennis would get. And and that is very disturbing when you think back on it. It's very disturbing that your eating habits are so bad that they are memorialized in every employee in the restaurant.
Yeah, man. So what would happen when you would try to go a day or two without Jack in the Box?
Oh,
For me, it
oh,
was a struggle without Taco Bell. What was your
oh.
experience?
Dude, when you talked about your struggle and putting holes through, I became the most irritable, angry. I mean, it was like, you ever heard the phrase an angry drunk? Well, I was
Oh,
an
of
angry
course.
foodie, okay? Which I think is worse than an angry drunk, because eventually the angry drunk will pass out. The angry foodie just wants food. I was like Homer Simpson, you know, beer, oh, food, and it was like, and I'm like, it's like when I see these cartoons and I see this stuff, I'm like, man, I've been there. I know what that's like. You get into this state of craving. It's bad. It's really bad. It was always the same time of the day. It would be like around 2:50. And the reason I know it was 2:50 because I would get out of class at 2:30 and I would talk to a few friends, and then I would quickly look at my watch, walk to my car, and then I would jump in my car, and it would take me 10 minutes from where I always parked to the Jack in the Box parking lot. Once I got to Jack in the Crack, okay, and it was, that to me is what it was. It became crack. I would get there, walk in, food was on the counter. It was on the counter, and I don't know if this happened to you. I was taking food home or back to campus, depending on where I had to be, before I could even turn the ignition. That voice would say, "Eat me." Like the fly trap on
Oh yeah.
what was it, the Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Yep.
I'm going to, it was like the sandwich would say, "Eat me," and I would literally reach into the bag and just like with the oil just running down, and I would just bite into it, and I would literally be like, "Oh my God, this is so good," and it'd be like,
Yep.
and people say, "You're making this up." No, the addiction to the oil and the fat and the sugar, because I cannot guarantee you that what I was actually eating was food. I can tell you that it was oil. It was lots of oil, lots of salt, lots of sugar, hidden in what's supposed to be was cheese or burger or bun or something with some sauce. And it didn't matter. I just had it to have it. And once I had a couple of bites, I could put it down, and then I could drive, go do what I need to do. And literally, I think, and again, not having been a drug addict of that type, after a period of time, I would have to go back, finish it up, and then maybe I'd look over, grab some fries, and then sometimes I'd be even lazy and just take fries and lay them under the bun so I could just eat it all at one time, not having to, because I didn't want to have to do an extra reach down the road. I wanted it all at one time.
That's the epitome of laziness.
Yes,
I love it. I don't love it, but I love it at the same time because I was there, man. I get it.
And I tell people, it's like, you don't realize. And if somebody would have been recording me back in those days, I really would have probably needed, I probably needed an addiction anyway, but I didn't know any better. And then eventually, so I gained the weight. And then one day I was walking. So I'm on campus and I'm walking from one part of the campus to the other. And all of a sudden my eyesight got blurry and I couldn't breathe. And I literally had to sit down on the ground. And I was like, something's wrong. I need to go see a doctor. And my doctor looked at me and he basically said, you're pre-diabetic, and if you keep at this stage, you're going to be a diabetic and you're going to lose a limb. And literally, he just read me the process of becoming a diabetic. He didn't tell me that there were options until later on. So he gives me the meds. Now, being the Marine that I was, I would take the meds not in the dosage recommended, but like double or triple the dosage, because I'm like, well, I'm going to get rid of this because it's a pill. If I just take a pill, it'll all go away.
Well, hold on now. Let me stop you here. It's an interesting phenomenon with food addicts when the doctor hands them a cold dose of reality. Did you still wind up going to Jack in the Box that day, the next day, like,
Yes.
and you were doubling up on your medication so you could essentially keep fueling that habit?
There you go. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, I was taking, I think he given me metformin and he wanted me to take one pill. I was taking up to 4 pills of metformin in one time, not a day, in one time. And then I would go to Jack in the Box and get some food.
Yep. I get it, man. I get it.
And,
It was
and
whatever you needed to do to get that Jack in the Box, man.
that's right,
Whatever
because it was like I needed, and he had me on a blood pressure medicine, so it's because of all the salt, right? So I had to feel better so I could put back into me the stuff that was causing me to feel bad in the first place.
Yeah.
So,
I'm guessing that though your weight then and your health just kind of continued to deteriorate. So here you are, you're taking all of this metformin, you're continuing to eat at Jack in the Box, living this unhealthy lifestyle, still on that downward spiral, I'm assuming.
Yep. I mean, it was okay. In my neighborhood, there was a general store, and then there was also my post office, right? And I used to walk. When I first moved to Hawaii, I would walk to the general store and I would walk to the post office. It got to the point where I would get in my car just to drive, and I'm talking about a block and a half, 2 blocks max, to the general store. And when I got to the general store, I would get apple pies, I would get some chips, I would get, some kind of junk food, Twinkies, whatever was not Twinkies, the Hostess cupcakes with the chocolate on top and the cream stuff in the middle. I would get those, and I also get the Little Debbie rolls. I'm gonna tell you, I know what I used to eat. I know my poison. It's like I knew my poison like a wine connoisseur knows their wines.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then now here's the really sad part. So the general store was right here, and literally there was a hedge with a walkway that would take you to the post office. I would get back in my car and drive to the post office so that I could pick up my mail, and then I would drive home.
Yep. I get it, man.
At no point in time would I walk. I was like, why would I want to walk? I'd be tired and I'd be hungry. So why would I walk? So anyway, so the long and the short was that became my lifestyle. And then when the doctor gave me that wake-up call, and he said, you could keep this up and you're going to die. He said, you're going to die, you're going to lose limbs. He said, is that what you want? And I said, no. He says, what is it that you want? He did ask me, what did I want? I said, well, what I don't want is to have to take a bunch of medications. He said, I can't tell you how to do this, but I do know that, you could try to go vegetarian, but I don't know anything about it. You could talk. There's a Seventh-day Adventist church. Maybe go see some of those people and see if they can give you advice on how to eat, become vegetarian or plant-based. Okay. And for those who don't know, Seventh-day Adventists are built around Ellen G. White and her writings on health and the book of Leviticus or is it Leviticus and Deuteronomy? Anyway, and it's tied to that you have this obligation that your body is a vessel and you're supposed to take care of it and return it to God in the same state, that he gave it to you, which was, healthy and well and this sort of thing. And so that meant that you gave up sugar, refined foods, and you just ate whole food, plant-based. Some Seventh-day Adventists will eat eggs, some will be pescatarian, but for the most part, they would eat no lamb, beef, chicken, or pork. So those would be the big things. And pork was definitely a no-no because they followed heavily the Judaic dietary laws. So you didn't eat pork no matter what. And you also were not supposed to have meat and cheese together. So it was kind of, that was at least my understanding, and that was how it was taught to me. So if there's somebody out there who's Seventh-day Adventist and disagrees, I can only tell you what was told to me. And I tried it, and then I started walking.
I got you, but that must have been kind of a scary thought at that point. I mean, no meat and cheese together. I mean, Jack in the Box is out the window completely at that point.
Guess what? It didn't happen. I mean, okay, I added more. I would buy Boca burgers, not Boca burgers. They were doing Garden Burgers, or the one in the Morningstar. So they had a lot of
Right.
Morningstar products. So
Yeah.
I substituted Morningstar products, which really aren't that much healthier because you cook them in oil anyway. So you get the links and all this stuff. But I was trying to make the adjustment. But then I started reading, and so then I decided, okay, I'm going to eat more plants. And I got back into the kitchen, and I started doing things like getting creative with food. One of my favorite dishes to make was a stuffed onion. I would cut an onion in half and core out the middle part, and I would stuff it with rice and beans and a few other things, and I would bake that in the oven with a little cinnamon on top and some chili powder, because I like those two together. And to hold it together, I would run a couple of toothpicks through it. And in those days, I wasn't vegan, so I was using a little bit of honey sometimes to give it a caramelization on top. But that would be my attempt at eating something plant-based. Okay, so I would do dishes like that. Still had a lot of rice because I lived in Hawaii, and rice is a key component of the diet. So is spam, but that was not one of my things. But
I was going to ask you about that.
Okay, yeah. So but that was what I was doing. And then I decided I wanted to go to, so then I joined the gym, and I almost passed out doing bench pressing of like 130 pounds. So the guy was like, you really need to get in shape, dude, because you're really, really, really out of shape. And I tried the exercise bike, and that just wore me out. And I literally quit the gym because I was too tired. I was like, man, this is exhausting. And then, of course, my blood pressure would be probably elevated from what I ate before going to the gym, because Jack in the Box was open early and you could order whatever you wanted. And then I'd go to the gym after having eaten, and then I'd get like dizzy, and then I'd sit down, drink some water, and then I would just go home. So eventually I decided to start walking. I then picked up the game of golf, and then I told myself that I'm going to, so then, and I picked up golf, and I decided to carry my bag, and I decided to attempt to walk 9 holes in the morning. And I had a tour bag because I was a Marine, so you go big or go home. So you tend to buy all the clubs, you buy all the stuff. And I was literally trying to carry this bag, walking on a golf course early in the morning, playing sunrise golf. Because at the municipal course, you could play sunrise golf, which means that if you got there at sunrise, you could play until the course opened. So, and so you have beautiful greens, and I've just gotten play. And how I knew I was getting in shape was actually one of my measures down the road, was that when I first started playing, you could see by the time I got to the green, you could look back and you see this zigzag pattern of a guy who really didn't know how to play golf, and he was really not doing well. Before I left Hawaii, instead of zigzag, you would see a straight line, literally a stop, a straight line, and I was on the green. So it was measured. And then eventually I went to work in a bike shop, and because I was a college student and I had to figure out how to buy a bike. And the only way to buy a bike is to work in a bike shop, because you get everything at a reduced cost. And if you assemble your own bike, then I had no labor costs. So, I could buy a bike. That kept me in shape. I got back to the US. I got called to active duty for Desert Storm. And fast forward from that, I ended up back in Hawaii. Diet was not as good as it should have been, because when you're in the military, what they're feeding you is not plant-based. There might have been plants in it at some stage, but it's just food. And then eventually I left Hawaii, moved back to North Carolina. I ended up in the car business, and I ended up with a client, and she was the most wonderful person. Her and her husband were the most wonderful people I have ever met in doing sales. That two of the most wonderful people. And I say that not just because she bought a Porsche from me and I got to deliver it to her house and put a bow on it. Her husband had a patio. We pushed that car into the patio, put a bow on it, a couple of dozen red roses. And then he had 4 Emmys. okay, which I didn't know how big the Emmy was. It's a big statue. And eventually she said to me, she said, why don't you come work for me? She says, I own a television station. I could use somebody like you in ad sales. And eventually we'd like to see if we can get you in front of the camera. Because she's like, I like your personality, yada, yada, yada. So I went and worked in television ad sales, but it required a lot of whining and dining. And whining and dining means you're not eating healthy. And I'm in North Carolina. So whining and dining is not, you know, a nice healthy salad or some, you know, fettuccine, some spinach pasta with, you know, with some type of tofu. No, it was, you know, Southern fare. It was Southern fare. And because you were chasing dollars to get people to advertise on a television station.
So you leave TV ad sales, your weight's back, been eating for crap, probably not feeling the best about yourself because you're bathing in sleaze every single day. And I know that at one point, man, your health catches up to you in just a big old way. So let's jump to that now.
Okay.
Your
So
face,
that brings me to Washington, D.C. That brings me to Washington, D.C. And so in D.C., I decide, because I guess I'm near the Marine Corps Memorial, I'm going to run the Marine Corps Marathon. I am just going to wake up. I'm overweight. I'm obese. And I am going to run the Marine Corps Marathon. So I go to see my doctor. And he was a nice guy. And he said to me, I ran the Marine Corps Marathon, and we need to run a bunch of tests before I would even sanction you training to run the Marine Corps Marathon. So we had the test scheduled on a Thursday. And on Monday, because I was now working for a government contractor in DC. On Monday, and I need to go ahead and give you the update on my new diet. My new diet was, I would wake up in the morning and I would have 2 or 3 cups of coffee, 1 or 2 Dr. Peppers, and a Pepsi, and a bagel, and I'd be at work, and I was at work at 6:30 in the morning. And I would work all day, and then I would go downstairs to the Asian restaurant downstairs, and I would get their General Tso's chicken. Okay. Now, did you think about the calories I just gave you for my morning start? Okay.
You're off to a humming start, man, and then you're going to a hardcore lunch.
That caffeine has got me revved up. It's got me like running.
Yeah.
And so then I go and I have the General Tso's chicken. Well, General Tso's chicken makes you sleepy. Because, and of course, with my General Tso's, I have a couple of more Pepsis or Dr. Pepper, because I didn't like Coke. I was a Pepsi Dr. Pepper guy. Okay. So I would have that. And then, and of course, I also love cheer wine back in the old days. But I would do that. But this particular Monday, I got done eating and I started getting a tingling feeling in my little finger on my left hand. It was just an odd little tingle. And then all of a sudden I get these like shooting pains in my left arm, and I'm like, I don't feel too good. So I go back to my office and I go back to work. I don't feel good. And what did I do at my desk? I pulled out another from my little refrigerator by my desk. I pulled out another Pepsi, and I have my Pepsi, and then something says you need to call your doctor. So I call my doctor, and he says, I need you to go to George Washington University Hospital. He says, I'm licensed there. Whatever it is, he had his privileges there. So he said, why don't you go there? Because that's the closest place to your office. Because I was in downtown. I was in Roslyn. So okay. When people say Arlington, I was actually in the Roslyn portion of Arlington. And so I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I work another 2 hours. Then I walk around and I tell a couple of people in my office that I knew that, hey, I can't hang out with you guys tonight. My doctor wants me to go over here and get checked out. So I'm going to just go and get checked out, but I should be back in the morning. So I go downstairs, and now my symptoms are getting worse. I call a taxi. Okay, think about this. Now, I call a taxi. Why? Because I'm impervious. I'm not ready to die yet, so I'm impervious. So I call a taxi. Taxi comes, takes me to the ER. They get me in the ER, and I'm sitting there, and somebody actually finally reads why I'm there. And all of a sudden, they hit a button or something, and they come out with a gurney. They throw me on it, and they're like ripping open my shirt, and they're like wiring me for sound. And then next thing I know, they're slathering nitroglycerin paste on my chest. And they're like, you're about to have a heart attack. You're about to have a heart attack. And they're like, you haven't had one, but you're getting close. And so I'm in the ER. And I'm now in observation, and doctors and nurses are constantly coming in. They're checking my vitals, checking my signs. Everything seems to have settled down. Again, they give me a pill, those pills mask everything. My heart calms down. I don't have a heart attack, but they now need to get me checked out. So now they're going to admit me. So they admit me into the hospital. Now, remember, this is Monday. We're now into Tuesday morning. What is sitting in the cath lab already ordered for me? It is a nuclear stress test, but that's for Thursday. It's Tuesday. I show up and they're like, oh, we want to run some lab tests on you to see what's going on with your heart, to see what needs to be done. On Tuesday afternoon, now I was fortunate in my room. My roommate was a former Marine who survived the Chosin Reservoir. And so I got to meet him, and it was an honor, and it was it was an eye-opening experience. So then they rolled me down to the lab, the cardiac lab, and they hooked me up for the nuclear stress test, because that was what was already scheduled, not what the ER doctor wanted me to do. Midway through my nuclear stress test, somebody wakes up and realizes I'm taking the wrong test. Now they have to rush me back to my room and give me a bunch of things to make sure that I'm okay, because it could have induced a heart attack because it wasn't there. That led to eventually I ended up having to get a stent put in. And the doctor that did it said, look, if you don't want to do this again or ever want to see me, here's Dr. Dean Ornish's book. You need to go buy this book and read it. And I tried. I bought the book, bought a used copy. It was so dense, I just could not read it and get through it because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready mentally and emotionally to do it. But fast forward, I do lose some weight. I do exercise a little. And then I had to go with my wife for a checkup at a doctor's office over in somewhere else in Virginia. And afterwards, my wife was like, what are we going to do for lunch? And I said, I don't know. Let me see. I discovered the Happy Cow app. So I looked up vegan restaurants, and GreenFare popped up. And I'd never heard of GreenFare, but I knew where it was supposed to be. But I'm like, I don't remember ever seeing it there. Of course, I never went there for GreenFare. There was all the other unhealthy places there to eat at. So I go in and I meet Gwen and I meet Pericles, and they're like fantastic people. And they had Dr. Barnard's information on the table. They had it all these places. And my wife says, oh, I know him. She says, when I was doing my MPH, I would follow him when she was at Columbia University. So she was like, he's really good. You should, look into him and see if the insurance will take him, we'll pay for, he'll take our insurance. And so I said, okay, I'll do that. And so I decided to do that. But before I could get in to see him, I was still seeing a cardiologist that was not plant-based. And that cardiologist, one day I wasn't feeling well. He took me in and they were going to run a probe to see if they needed to do another stent or do something else. And apparently I had blockage in the widowmaker. And when they tried to run the probe through one of the valves, the other one would collapse. So they would back out, and then they would go to the other, and then the other one would collapse. So they were like, and now you have to understand, and this is my wake up moment. This is, as the Southern Baptists would say, this was your come to Jesus moment, okay? Because you're laying on a table, okay, and there's this like 72-inch flat screen monitor above you, and you see this, and you are awake. You are awake. You're under a local. So you are awake and you are seeing this probe go through your body, and you're seeing what they're seeing. And the nurses and doctors are talking, and you hear them say things like, we can't stent him because it'll kill him. Literally, this is what they're saying to each other. And I'm awake doing this. I'm hearing all of this. And then finally they say, okay, let's back out. We're not going to do open heart surgery. Literally, they're talking open heart surgery. They're talking all of this stuff. And they take me out and they get me back to my room. And he says, "You're going to die." He says, and I don't mean a long time from now. You're going to die, and you're going to die soon. And he was like, because you've got blockage and you need to change. And so he says, all I can do is put you on a bunch of beta blockers, and I can put you on, and I want you to start carrying nitroglycerin with you. And, and I want you to take all of these meds, and this is going to be your life until such time we think you should have your chest opened up, and then we can go in and fix it that way. That was his conversation with me. And the first thing I told him when I met him years prior was that I didn't want open heart surgery, and I did not want another stent. I wanted to figure out a way to get better. At no point in time did he mention whole food plant-based. Fast forward, I now go to see Dr. Loomis. And he's like, you really need to just clean up. You're eating plant-based. And I was eating plant-based, but I wasn't eating healthy. I was still doing I was going over to Founding Farmers and eating the Impossible Burgers and all this stuff. So I was trying to eat plant-based, but I was still heavy on the salt, sugar, and oil. And but under tutelage of PCRM, and finding a home where people actually actively encourage you to get healthy, I really buckled down and got on it. And then Dr. Loomis sent me to a plant-based cardiologist in New York. And his first words out of his mouth when I walked into his office was, "You're obese and you need to stop whatever it is that you're doing. And here's what I want you to do going forward." And that was Dr. Osfeld. And Dr. Osfeld, I think he's the greatest because he was no nonsense. And between him and Dr. Loomis and then Susan Levin, I really hunkered down and eventually reached a point where I ended up off my meds, off my metformin and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, just a heck of a turnaround. So you get turned on to the whole food plant-based. You get this whole wake-up call. And I mean, did that make it easier for you to transition? Like, did your will to live just basically take over, and then all of those cravings that you had just kind of became more manageable, or did they fade away because you were so hyper focused on surviving?
Actually, the truth is, it was my wife. My wife's 11 years younger than I am. And the fear that I saw in her eyes when she was sitting in the room and the doctor started talking, I was like, I cannot do this to anyone, because I went through this with a grandparent, and I know how devastating that can be emotionally for someone. So I was like, I do not want to do that to her. Yes, I'm going to die. We all are. We're not going to live forever. But I don't want her to have to spend her life changing my diapers, helping me walk because I've lost limbs, feeding me, or me. And it was weird things. It wasn't so much death that freaked me out. It was having a stroke. Having a stroke and not being fully mobile, to me, was probably more frightening than the actual demise that you would come to. Right. And maybe that's because I was a Marine. Maybe it's just my upbringing. But yeah, the coming to the end has never been my fear. I have fears of things, of being paralyzed, immobile, a burden. See, that for me is a fear. That is a fear I never want to put on anyone. Mm-hmm. And so for me, so to answer your question, I was all in, but I was all in because I didn't want her or any of my family to have to do that for me.
And that's a powerful reason too, man. I mean, they say love conquers all, and in this case, it really kind of conquered your health demons.
It you don't understand, my friend. It was like there's no way. And then, of course, but then you have the other effect. Then you go from being the guy who is, proselytizing about Jack in the Box being the Holy Grail, to being the guy who is, let me heal you, sinner, because I'm going to teach you how to not eat bad food. Come to me, and I'm going to help you. I'm going to dig deep inside and get you to be healthy. because follow me, because I know the way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And
I got you. Preach on, Rev. I got you.
and
Uh,
so you literally go the other way. And finally, I found the middle path.
yeah.
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 It's there's always the middle is where it always seems to happen. It being pretty much everything. The middle seems to be the best way. We go
Yes.
from one end of the pendulum to the other, and then boom, this is where we need to be. But daggone, man. So let's talk about some of the things that you'd like to eat now. I'm sure that everybody who's listening is like, okay, well, we know that he loved Jack in the Box. We know that he loved General Tso's. We know that he loved Pepsi. But what are the things that Dennis Jones loves to eat now?
Okay. We'll start with the drink. My favorite drink is hibiscus tea, but not just hibiscus in a bag. I like to get the hibiscus flower, put it in either boiling water or just water, and let it soak overnight, and just drink it. Nothing added. That's my favorite drink. So if you want to know, I don't do fizzy water of any type. None. Nada. Won't touch it. So it's hibiscus tea, and then I'll do nettle tea, and I'll also do ginger turmeric tea. So those are my drinks. So that solved my drinking issue. My food issue, I still say to this day, my favorite dish to make, and people may not think on the surface that it's healthy, is my vegan pancakes. That is my favorite dish to make, because I eat them any time of the day, and there's no oil, there's no sugar, there's no refined sugar in it. It's just my vegan pancakes. And then after that, I like doing things like, I still like to do a lot of creative dishes, where I'll do things like, I learned how to veganize a fried kale or collard green recipe, a Brazilian kale recipe. And I do that. And the secret is you want to wash your greens first, dry them, but not completely. Get your pan really, really, really hot, where you just have beads of water. Throw the greens in while it's really hot, and just stir them around, stir fry them quickly. Then throw your onions, and then throw your chilies, and then throw all your other garlic and all of that other stuff in it. And I like to serve that over a bed of quinoa, and with some black beans. And
that sounds pretty daggone good, man.
dude, you one of these, if you ever get a chance, check out my Instagram page. You'll see some of the photos of some of the stuff that I've made. And my wife loves it, and my everybody that knows me loves it. When I've had a bad day, they can tell, because or what's my phrase? It's not a bad day. All days are good days. Some days are just better than others. When my day has not been as good as others, you will know, because if you walk into my house, there will be probably 3 very complex dishes made that will be plated and look as pretty as all get out, because presentation's everything. So, and just so you know, before looking at going to law school in Oklahoma, I actually toured with culinary school. So food has always been a passion.
Right.
So for me, it's all about, you eat first with your nose, then with your eyes, and then with your mouth.
Do you think that you went so hardcore in the kitchen on those days that aren't as good as others, as a way to kind of get your frustration out? Or like on a deeper level, was that your way of, I'm doing this because this is appetizing and this is going to keep me away from the drive-through, when you would just throw up your hands, and because you've had such a day at that point?
That's an interesting way of saying it. I was thinking of it more of I need to get in the kitchen to be creative so I can work through whatever demons I'm dealing with that day. But the other thing is as Barney Fife would say, is cathartic, or whatever he used to say on the Andy Griffith Show. It's like meditation for me. When I get into the kitchen and I start to cook and I start to put together my recipes, and I cook a lot by smell. So it's like, and I'm looking for my colors, and I'm looking for, literally, I'm looking to create something. And I used to shoot film photography, and I used to paint. And so there is a creative side to me when I'm not being insane. And that but it's also that too, it keeps me from getting in my car and driving to a vegan fast food restaurant to get something to eat. I mean, literally it encapsulates all of those things by me spending time in the kitchen working at it.
My final question to you is this. If you were to go to the doctor today and say, hey, doc, I'm thinking about running the Marine Corps Marathon, what reaction do you think he would have compared to the one that he had a few years back?
He would probably say, that's good. And but he would want to put me on a routine that he would think was manageable, because he knows that I tend to go from zero to a hero, that whole pendulum swing thing. So he would probably try to rein in my enthusiasm so that I don't overdo the training and then can't get to it.
She's just trying to protect you from yourself, I suppose.
Let me just give you an example. My doctor was amazed that I got into biking again, and I decided to ride a metric century on a single speed bike.
Okay. Metric century. Okay, metric I got century.
You. Okay, that's 70, say roughly 70 miles if you make a wrong turn. And mine ended up being 78 miles. But and you're riding so you're riding from Reston west out to Percival. So now you're hitting hills, you're on roads, and I did all of this on a single speed bike. And people were like, are you crazy? And I'm like, it's the only way for me to work out my demons, because there is some fall-on effect, I think, of being a Marine, is that you do have a very, I have to challenge myself. I don't need others to challenge me. I have to challenge myself, and I have to create something that people tell me can't be done, just so I can prove them wrong and do it.
Well, I'll tell you this much. If you're pedaling from Reston to Percival on a single speed bike, you're working out a lot more than just demons, man. You're working out every muscle in your body. And these are facts. These are absolute facts.
Yes, they are, my friend. They are. And, you know, but it's, and it's fun. It's right now, my new goal is to bike from Leesburg, where I live, to the Barnard Clinic one day in the spring or summer when the weather's nice. And I now do it on a folding bike. So I have a Brompton, and that little Brompton, my goal is to bike on a Brompton 34.5 miles, because I've already mapped it from my house, to the office one way, and then ride back.
Just do it, man. Let me know what day you're coming, and I'll swing by, and maybe we'll grab lunch or something.
That would be great. I'd appreciate it. And I'm glad that you're doing well. And like I said, I always tell my clients I do have an upcoming class in March, I believe.
Yeah, let's talk about what it is that you're doing at course correction. I can't let you out here, because you're doing what I love to call paying it forward. You're taking your own transformation and you want to help other people now. So you've begun teaching classes as the Food for Life instructor. You've got course correction. And so now you've got classes coming up in March, you said, or May?
March. So,
March.
Okay. So I have, course correction. It was a name that I picked because somebody said, what do you want to call your company? And I was like, well, I'm always trying to course correct, so I'll call it course correction. Literally, that's how I came. There was no real thought that went into the name process. In March, I have my second part of a multi-part series on fighting diabetes with food. That starts in March. Next week, or actually this week, I'm in a conference call with a doctor in Alberta, Canada, who wants me to consider doing a Food for Life program for the First Nation people near where she lives. Okay. And I know that there are Food for Life instructors up there, but she has known me off and on for a while. And she's like, she says, you bring something to the table that I bring something to the table that she doesn't bring. And she said, and I like your personality, and I think you're relatable. So that is what's there. And then also too, I just completed the CDC's program to be a diabetes lifestyle coach. So I'm working with people who are pre-diabetic or who just been diagnosed as being pre-diabetes, being pre-diabetic, to help them on the national program to prevent them from becoming full-blown diabetes, having diabetes. And then, of course, I work with anybody who is diabetic, corporations, working with their groups of people in wellness. So I'm doing a bunch of things tied to wellness working with some companies, putting up some proposals together. And everything I do does incorporate Food for Life. And then, of course, all the other materials that I have at my disposal. So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh yeah,
But
man.
I've got some time. I'm free most of the day. I mean, yeah, I think there's like 5 minutes left in the day. Would you like those?
Yeah, we'll link off to your website. We'll have all of your contact in the show description or in the episode notes. And my final question to you
Yes.
is this: I mean, as a Black man and knowing the health inequities that we're facing, not just in the U.S., but I mean, this is a global epidemic here of health inequity. Do you realize what a leader you have the potential to be? You already are in helping others dig out of this hole that they think that they're just kind of trapped in right now.
That, my friend, is why I didn't want to say that, but that was actually what the doctor in Canada said. She says, I'm a white woman. She says, I may be a lesbian, but I'm still a white woman. I go into a First Nation a program, and they're just going to see yet again another white Canadian trying to tell the First Nation how to live. She says, you, my friend, can come in and they may relate to you far better than they will ever relate to me. And on that other front, I actually do try to work, and I've experimented with, and I've shown that you can live on $50 a week for 2 people, eating whole food, plant-based, and actually having food left over. So I'm a big proponent of working with any community, any group out there that wants someone to come in and either give a talk, because I am a speaker. So I'll come in and talk about it, but I'll also come in and lead classes. I use Veg Fund. If they don't have money, I try to get some support from Veg Fund. I try to look for donors. I tell people, I mean, I have a day job, but which is health insurance, which is why I'm so motivated to get people off of needing to use their health insurance. Anything I can do to help people, as long as we can find the money for it or find a way to cover my costs, I'm there to help.
You are a good human being, Dennis, and it has been a real treat to have you on the program today. Again, we've got links off to your website, all of your contact information in the show description or in the episode notes, my friend. Thank you so very much for your time, and congratulations on your health turnaround.
Thank you, my friend. And it's always good to see you, Chuck. And when I do bike into DC, I will let you know.
You got a date, my man.
All right, my friend. Take care.
If your health IQ is a couple of points higher than it was a few minutes ago, go ahead and like this video or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And to take it even higher, head over to Apple Podcast or wherever you get your favorite shows. Look for The Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. Hit the subscribe button there as well and help to make your world a healthier place.